All right. Well, welcome everybody. Very excited to be here. We are with the Are You Ready webinar series hosted by myself, Dr. Amanda Stirk, and Kelly Thawley is here as my support person. So hi.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, we are very excited. Sorry, we're supposed to start learning this webinar platform. So we are working on it. We're excited. So we are going to be hosting several different live webinars. And what I would like to show you all is the Are You Ready link and website. So if you want to get on, sign up for the live webinars. Tonight we're doing it recorded, sort of with some technical difficulties, and we wanted to make sure to get a practice and get this out to people ahead of time. And so we're recording this one, but the next ones are all going to be live. And so if you're interested in joining, you can see the website up here at the futuremakerscoalition.com, and we'll definitely get this out. So if you are on a flyer or whatever, you're going to be able to see that, but you can see that link up there. And what you're going to see here is once you register for this event, you should be able to be registered then for all of the links and for the nights. And so we have lots of different activities kind of going on. Basically, both Kelly and I are going to be alternating and presenting with other panelists, and we're going to be talking with college admission representatives from all over the state. We're going to be talking about financial aid and scholarships and how to make a good informed college and career decision, and sort of what are the steps that you need to do that, right? And this is really geared a little bit more towards juniors and seniors, but we would love for freshmen and sophomore to join us, or anybody that's really just sort of interested in how do you navigate the high school to college process. And one of the things that you're also going to have access to, which is a newly released workbook, which is called the College Unmazed Workbook. And you actually are going to have a free digital view right here on the website. And that is what I am going to be starting to work out of this evening, is going to be doing talking about kind of the first few chapters of the College Unmazed Workbook, and sort of the why and how to sort of college admissions and what they're looking for, and why maybe post-secondary education is important. And then we're going to then navigate through really the college going process, and as well as career and technical education process as well. So we're going to be talking about building a list. How do you explore colleges? How do you actually apply to colleges? How do you actually decide? And then how do you succeed once you are there? So you can just click on right here and you're going to have access to all of that. I do have other co-authors, Dr. Tim Poynton out of University of Massachusetts and Dr. Richard LePan out of UMass Amherst. We spent over 2 years working on this workbook, and just because, I believe, of course, in Southwest Florida, and really building our pipeline of great workforce and having a really robust community, we wanted to provide this absolutely free. There is no cost, and again, you have the digital version all right here. So I do hope that you follow along. I do also hope that you share the link with other people that might be interested in joining us and listening to these presentations, and really getting some extra additional guidance on how to sort of actively pursue and go through the college to career sort of process. So without much further ado, here you go. I guess I got to scroll down. You can actually see the webinars here that we're going to be doing, and it's every 2 weeks, so 6:30 to 7:30. They're bi-weekly. Thursday night, 6:30, like I said, 6:30 to 7:30. It's either going to be myself or Kelly sort of hosting, and we have some really great topics here. And you can see down here at the bottom, we have some QR codes and different things that you can use. But I think we need to get started and get going and really kind of start this off. So again, College Unmazed is going to be one of the workbook or the resource that we're going to be working out of this evening. So a little bit about myself. My name's Dr. Amanda Stirk, and I am by day the director of Accelerated Pathways at Florida Southwestern State College. I love what I do. I get to work with over 3,200 dual enrollment students at FSW across our 5 counties, whether that be Lee, Collier, Charlotte, Glades, Hendry County, and all the private schools, homeschool kids, public school. And I get so many questions from parents and students all the time about the college going process and what do I need to know, and I get to also find out what you don't know. And really kind of the reason for this series is to really kind of give that information to you guys. And just so you know, I actually started writing and blogging about because I believe in Florida and I believe in Florida higher education. And my first workbook was actually on specifically Florida high school students. And then I kept getting requests all over the nation saying, hey, we want a book too. What about us? And so I did work with my other co-authors, and we wrote the book, just released in March. So very proud of that. And so that's sort of my at night, and my other superpower is presenting and writing and whatever I can do to really help families navigate the process. So very excited to be here. And you can always email me. This is the College Amazed email, but you can always email at astirk@fsw.edu. I'm also social media. You can find me Facebook, Instagram. I'm not a big poster. I'm one of the older people that don't post as much, but I do try to keep people informed and like to post different articles and things like that. So just so you know, you can track me down pretty easily. And again, kind of starting off this whole series, and this is a question that I know Kelly and I talk about all the time. Why college? Like, why do I need to really consider some type of post-secondary education? Well, one of the things that we have found is today's workforce, over 60% of our jobs that are out there right now need some type of degree or certificate, period. Certificate, degree, and that would include, like I said, CTE programs. It could be like an AS, Associates of Science degree. It could be bachelor's degrees and so forth. It really depends, obviously, on the job, but 60% of jobs need some type of degree or certificate. And when you look at sort of like the national averages, and this is actually Florida coming up here, we're really looking at less than right over half. So there's a big gap in our education system that we have more jobs and then we have students ready for those jobs. And so with being part of the Future Makers Coalition, who is sponsoring this, and that's what Kelly and I are on the Access and Entry team, and we really believe in that sort of high school to college pipeline. What does that look like? We know that this is a problem and there's a gap, and especially here in Southwest Florida, there's a gap. So really the idea is we want you to be prepared for whatever job you want in the future. And we don't even know what all the jobs are going to be there. I'm sure both of us, when we started in high school and we're your age, I doubt neither one of us would have expected where we're going to be at today. And I didn't know this job existed, and I didn't know how I could use an education background and work with students, but yet be on a different side and still be able to write and do some of the other things. Oops, sorry, I moved. So I think that's really important to know that it's changing, especially with the virtual world and globalization, that, what the jobs are today aren't going to be the jobs of tomorrow. So it is important that we are really making sure and keeping the eye on the prize, which is to have a good job. And why do we want a good job? Well, if I show you this next slide, I think this is just as impactful. Is the idea is that your return on investment is really important. So for example, if you look at this black line is about $26,000. And that is actually showing us that that's the national poverty line, okay? And when you have less than high school, you're actually barely over the national poverty line. And that's again, these are median annual salaries and wages in the US. you get a high school diploma, you're a little bit more above that. And then you start going into some college, no degree, an associate's of degree. Now you're at $46,000. And then you keep going, and you can see the higher the education you get, the more money you make. And so really the difference between a bachelor's degree and a high school diploma in somebody's lifetime is over $1 million difference. Now, are there the outliers out there? Absolutely. But when you look at statistically and sort of across the board, you're going to see that with education comes more money, and more money gives you more freedom. It gives you more of a lifestyle that maybe you want and you want to do, and it gives you more options in your career choices. Where do you live? What do you do? And so just looking at, does education pay? Education absolutely does pay. So what are some important things now, kind of pivoting a little bit? And again, this is sort of the overview. Sorry, I got a hair. An overview of, in the College on May's book, chapters 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to be talking about 4, which is called the money factor, later on in the webinar series. And so this is sort of the high level information. And I'm pointing out some of the graphs and things that are within the book. And so what I would love for you to do, if you're going to follow along with this webinar series, is to actually read and follow along. And now you can hear me saying it, and now you can be seeing it, and you go, yes, like, okay, that's what Dr. Stirk was saying, right? That's what Amanda was saying. And so it would be really important, like I said, to read at least chapters 1, 2, and 3. They're really short. You're talking like 10, 15 pages at max per chapter. And so, but it's going to give you a lot more context and a lot more sort of, okay, what do I need to think of? So just note that these, all these graphs are coming from the book directly. So one of the biggest questions, again, kind of thinking of juniors and seniors. So let's say I need to go to college. I want to go to college. And so what's college looking for? So when I look at college admissions, so, you know, one of the things is, okay, I need to go. So how do I get in, right? What do I need to do? And so one of the things that they do is every year, a organization called NACAC, which is like the National Admissions Counselor Association, something like that. Okay. Don't quote me on that, but it's called NACAC. NACAC surveys all the admission representatives throughout the United States. And they say, okay, what do you think when you're looking at an application coming into your college, what is the most considerable importance? Like, what has considerable importance when you're making that decision, and what has moderate importance? And what does that look like? And so, for example, the red here is considerable importance, and then they rated the other ones moderate importance. And then obviously, if it wasn't important, they sort of left it off, right? So what is the most important thing that colleges look at when looking at a college applicant? So the first is your grades in all courses. So that includes electives, that includes your core classes, your math, your science, all of those courses. So how did you do across the board, day in, day out? Colleges significantly say, I want to know, how do they do in their grades? And if you look, grades are actually weighted more than your ACT and SAT scores. So while a lot of you might get hung up on, oh, I have to have test scores, especially here for Florida, actually they put a lot more emphasis on your GPA than they do on test scores. But what they also look at is grades in what they call grades in college prep courses. So that would be grades in like your dual enrollment classes, also maybe your honors classes, your Cambridge ACE, your AP, your IB classes, and so forth. So they're saying that that really has as much importance, and that usually is a little bit more core focus, right? So how did you do in math and science and English and foreign language, social studies? Those have a little bit more weight than electives like band or PE. And then you come down to your strength of curriculum. So one of the things that pretty much every high school does, is they submit what they call a school profile. And they say, here at Gulf Coast High School or here at Lehigh, these are all the courses that we have. This is our average type of student. These are some of the activities that we have. And so when an admission rep comes in, they can see you comparatively to what was at your high school. Because if you're at a small high school, say, Moorhaven, comparatively to a very large high school like Fort Myers High School, you have different opportunities. So you can't really compare a small school sometimes with a big school and vice versa. And so they really want to know, did you take some of the stronger courses and have a really strong curriculum throughout, or did you kind of take some of the easier courses, or what did you take? So this is really important to them, is your strength of curriculum. Then they also look at ACT, SAT. As we know here in Florida, all the state universities require ACT, SAT scores. Unlike some other states and other schools that are maybe test optional or test blind, they are definitely into their test scores here in Florida. And we're going to talk more about that when we start building in other webinars. We'll talk more about this and how to sort of build this so you can show this within a college admissions. Next will be your essay writing sample. Student demonstrated interest. We'll talk more about this throughout these webinar series, but this will be really like, how interested are you really in going to that college? And there is very specific ways to showcase that you are interested in a college, because they would much rather give a seat to somebody that wants to come versus somebody that's like, I'll just attach it to my Common App and see what happens, right? And a lot of schools are focused on that. And then next you see the recommendations kind of start going towards the bottom, whether it's from your counselor, your teacher, class rank has little importance. And then your extracurriculars, what did you do, is at the bottom. Okay, so it doesn't mean that's not important. It has moderate importance, but you can see that other things have a slightly higher importance rating, but it's still important, just not as much as really those grades, strength of curriculum, and ACT, SAT scores. So what are some things that you need to consider? Now this, each of these circles, your U factor, your academic factor, your career factor, and your money factor are really the 4 key things that when you're thinking of college and you're thinking about how do I build myself as a kind of an ideal candidate, wherever you want to go, right? And this is sort of what they are looking for. And we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight, are your sort of 3 factors. Again, I'm going to focus on your U factor, your academic factor, and your career factor. And then we'll talk more about money factor later on. But these are different things that they are looking for in your application, in your transcript, in your essay, in your letters of recommendation, and things that you need to be cognizant of and aware of, so that way you can sort of talk about those things, right? And you can integrate those into a good college application. And at the center of that are these really workforce ready skills that you need to be college and career ready. And we call those within the College Unmazed workbook, your 8 strengths. And your 8 strengths, let me scroll down here, are really kind of 8 key things when you look at research and you look at sort of who's successful in and out of college, right? They have actually started college and they finished, or they're in a good career. They really have a mixture of these 8 strengths. So the first one is agency. So that's really talking about having direction, and you're actually actively pursuing who you are, and you're creating meaningful and important opportunities so you can really take advantage of things that come your way. For example, the Are You Ready webinar series. The fact that you showed up tonight or are watching this video is already showing that you have agency, right? That you are pursuing something and taking advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you. That you also have positive beliefs. You have a sense of self-confidence, and you're able and willing to really take on new opportunities, persevere when you face adversity, and really believe that you can kind of be anything and be who you want to be. You have goals, right? So having effective goals, having SMART goals that are, very specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're realistic, and they're timely is important, right? Knowing that there's sort of a path for you, whatever that path may be, is very important. So to be like, I don't know what I want to be. I don't want to say how old I am, but I still keep changing my mind what I want to be because things happen, and but I create goals to allow opportunities to happen, and I take advantage of those. I also want to know myself, like what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. I started my college I wanted to be a real estate person and maybe flip houses. And that was when flipping houses was still like, no, there wasn't HDTV back then. And that's what my dad did. He flipped houses. I'm like, oh, I can do that. I took an interior design class and I very quickly realized I was horrible at it and I cannot go into a room and see anything. So I knew myself. I knew that it wasn't a skill set that I had. And I also knew I was passionate about education and I was passionate about writing. And so knowing what's important to yourself and what your values are is very important. And also you want to make sure that you have the skills and the ability to become a successful student. That's time management, that's your study skills, that you're really on top of your things, that you're organized, that you really can do the day-to-day. And that's why your grades are so important, because that shows colleges that you are a successful student. You're doing the day in, day out stuff. Your character. This is actually a really big deal. I know both Kelly and I, we read a lot of scholarship applications because we work with the collaboratory and read scholarships for them. And we work with students all over, and having good character, we read about that. And that's something that's really important to schools, that if you come here, are you going to engage in our community, right? Are you going to be dependable? Are you going to be a good student? Are you going to be a good roommate? Are you going to be a leader within our school? And so character and who you are is really important on a lot of different facets. College knowledge, and college knowledge, again, whether you're going into career and technical programs, or whether you're going into like more of higher ed, like the state university system or the Florida college system or private school or whatever, is you really need to know some of those critical steps on how to move from high school to college. So whether that's financial aid, whether that's applications, whether that's talking about college majors or career pathways, some of that terminology is really hard. And I see a lot of students not being successful because they don't know how to go through the process. And so again, the hope of the series is that we provide you some of that college knowledge so you're able to tackle whatever you want. And lastly, what I think is really important, and I think, Kelly on here as well, is that you develop a college support network, people around you that believe in you, that want to push you forward and really make sure that you can accomplish your goals. And so, that can be parents, it can be a pastor, it could be your counselor, it could be your career and college specialist at your high school. It could be myself, that you could be a teacher or professor, but it's somebody around you that really can help you through the process, or at least be supportive of that process and help you find that information. So these 8 college and career readiness strengths are just so integral throughout. So you're going to hear some of this stuff. Like, again, I want to sort of point them out to you and let you sort of think about how you can build these skills starting as early as freshman year and even senior year, because you're going to need to have these. So what are some ways through what we call your U factor? So your U factor is what sort of makes you unique, right? What makes Kelly Kelly? What makes Amanda Amanda? What makes you John and you Samantha, right? So what makes you different from every other student? And again, that's your personality, that's your character, that's the activities that you've done, it's what you're passionate about. So there's lots of different ways while in high school that you can start developing your 8 strengths and your U factor. So the first one is pretty common: work experience, having a part-time job. You have work ethic, and whenever you have a job, a part-time job, say you work at Chick-fil-A or Tropical Smoothie, it's kind of the norm, is that, that shows admissions and that you have a work ethic, that you're persistent and you have good time management and you're able to handle multiple things kind of thrown at you in a different environment, that you're involved in your community, that you care. A lot of scholarships really want to see that community involvement. They want to see you're focused and that you're doing things that are you're passionate about and that can help others. So, being part of Key Club or volunteering through the Lee Health System or the Alliance for the Arts, those type of things can really benefit you. Creative pursuits. So, like I said, mine's writing, making these little fun infographics is my creative pursuit. Yours might be art or theater or music or learning to do coding on the computer. It could be lots of different things, but that you are open to exploring, creating your individuality, staying disciplined, and really sort of, working towards something. And also kind of number 4 is major specific activities that, for example, that you are exploring some of the careers and potential majors that you might want to go into. So for example, if you want to be a vet, if I were to look at your college application, I would sort of expect that maybe you've worked for the Humane Society, or maybe you've shadowed a veterinarian in the past and helped, or maybe you did an academy, and I think it's Ida Baker that has the vet tech program, one of them. Sorry if I'm wrong on that. But like some schools have like the veterinary assistant program that you can actually get a certification on while in high school. So I would sort of expect that that's some of the major specific stuff. If you're in STEM, you're doing research, you're part of the Science Olympics, things like that, that you're career focused, you're looking at content, specific content focus, and that you're not just doing a bunch of things because your friends are doing it, but that you're doing it because that's what you want to pursue after high school. That you're involved in school clubs, activities. And what's interesting is a lot of kids think I have to do it all. I have to do 18 different activities. I got to be in this and so busy. No, actually, universities really want kids that pick a few activities and do them really well and really be committed to them. So being, 9th grade, I was a member, 10th grade, I was secretary, 11th grade, I was the vice president, and senior year, I became the president, right? So they want to see sort of that longevity, right? That you've been in there all the way from 9th to 12th grade and that you've committed hours. So for example, one of the things that'll ask you on the common application is how many hours per week and how many weeks per year do you do this activity? And that's what they're trying to find out here. Where's your passion? And your passion might be maybe not in school clubs, maybe it's church, and maybe you spend a lot of time in the music program at church. And I'm always shocked when I work with students and I look at their application and I said, well, I know you're really involved in your church or you're involved in this. Why don't you write it down? I'm like, oh, well, that's a school activity. That's not a school activity. No, they still want to see that. If that's a passion and a value to you, we want to talk about it. Leadership, that you're taking on responsibility, that you are leading and taking initiative and being part of that. So these are all ways throughout high school, starting as early as 9th grade, all the way through 12th grade, that we would want to see you sort of exploring and building those 8 strengths so you are prepared for after post-secondary. So other things that they look at, if you remember going back to college, taking rigorous courses and having a strength in your curriculum. So there's a lot of different coursework that they look at as being beneficial. And again, really thinking of college admissions and ways to sort of build who you are. So under academics, so this is chapter 2 of the book, and we go more into your GPA, we go into how to build a resume. Actually, sorry, resumes in chapter 3, career factor. But also like what you can do in high school to actually build those skills besides, the U factors, focusing on sort of your uniqueness. And then here, this is your academic coursework. And also in chapter 2, we talk about testing, like when do you do ACT, SAT? When might you take the PERT or the AccuPlacer, those type of tests. But here's some kind of interesting programs that I think that hopefully you've taken advantage of, or maybe you want to get more involved in if you're an underclassman. The first one is, we call it credit by examination. And that's how actually the Florida Department of Ed calls it, credit by exam. And those are going to be courses like your AP exams, your advanced placement, your IB programs, and your Cambridge ACE programs, and even CLEP exams. I'm seeing more and more students coming in with CLEP credit, but that is when you AP, IB, and ACE obviously are when you take a course at the high school taught by high school teachers. At the end of it, you take an exam. Based on that exam score, tells you what college credit you might receive for that. And if you Google, and I've told thousands of kids this, you should Google credit by examination Florida, and it'll come up with a list, all the APs given, all the IBs, all the ACE, all the CLEPs, and it'll say, if you take this test and you get this score, this is the exact college credit that you get at the colleges here in Florida. So that would be the Florida college system, like our state colleges like FSW, Miami-Dade, Indian River, and your state universities like, University of Florida, USF, UCF, FGCU, and so forth. So it's really easy to say, okay, if I'm sort of thinking of my career focus, what I want to do, then you can start lining up what classes you could take and what credit you're actually going to get. I was talking to a student, popped in, and she's actually working on her graduate program and was asking for some help. And she was like, wow, all these freshmen coming into FGCU, they have like 25, 30 credits. It's normal. I mean, that's really what a lot of students are doing. Not everyone has to do that, but we're seeing more and more students coming in, trying those classes. And then you have dual enrollment, which obviously I love dual enrollment. Like I said, I serve 3,200 dual enrollment students. And that is when you take courses taught by college professors that could be at your high school that are actually credentialed as college professors. It could be online through like FSW, or it could be at the college campus where you come to campus. We have actually right now over 500 full-time dual enrollment students, their junior, senior years, that are working on their AA. That's different, that there's not a final exam like the credit by exam. So if you get an A in Composition 1, it has to, by state law, transfer to UF or whatever as Composition 1 as an A. So really cool. So we really do work with all the students to make sure that they understand that those credits and how they transfer and get ready for your degree. Another one that I really like is, they're called MOOCs, kind of a weird word. MOOCs are called Massive Open Online Courses. And basically what that does is they're fun little courses, some are pretty serious, that are taught by professors all over the world. And 3,000 students might be part of this massive open online class. Sometimes there's a cost for them. But if your school's small, or you have a really, a very specific interest, your school might not have that, or you want to do something in the summer or over Christmas break and nobody's available. And they have classes in like aerospace engineering, they have stuff in advanced mathematics, they have stuff in fashion design and marketing and business, and all different types, environmental type of stuff. I mean, they have thousands of these courses, and they're professors from Duke and Harvard and MIT and Facebook and Google. And so there's some really cool ones that I think, as a way to sort of build that U factor, especially the career focus, might be a really good option. And explore, do I like this? Because it's better to try it out as a high school student than get into a degree like I did on business and realize I didn't really like it. And I spent a lot of money and a lot of time, and now I had to go backwards and start a whole different degree program. If you can start that early and try it out, much easier. And lastly, one of my favorites, and I know definitely Kelly's favorite as well, are industry certifications. So these are going to be through your academies, like Fort Myers Technical College or Cape Coral Technical Colleges, or, obviously if you're down in Collier or Hendry Glades, whatever. So these are the academies at the technical schools that provide you some type of certificate or degree at the end, and they could be like CNA work, which is like a certified nursing assistant, could be welding, HVAC, dental hygiene. So a lot of different opportunities there, and a lot of times instead of being credit, we call it credits in like credit by exam and dual enrollment credits. There it's usually by hours. You have to do so many hours in a classroom and maybe take a test and to get certified in certain areas. But I know, and we're going to be talking more about those programs later on in this series, but I mean, they're very well received in the community. Let's just say that the jobs that are available for kids that go through an industry certification are great. So really great option and really good pay, especially when you can actually get that certification. You really are. I live here in the Cape, and I mean, they're building houses everywhere and they're always looking for people, but there's more to it. There's a lot of different programs, and I can't wait for those schools to get on and tell us more about those programs. So that's another option, is industry certification. So that's, again, an overview, but you want to read the chapter because it's a good chapter and it talks more about testing, GPA, things like that, really to build that academic side of you and how to do that and ask the right questions. So the other one that I wanted to really talk about tonight is thinking about your career factor. So career factor is chapter 3, and chapter 3 really dives into how do students really decide, what do I want to be when I grow up? What do I actually want to do, right? I know I'm a good kid. I know I want to have a job. I know I need some type of post-secondary education, whatever that may be, but what is it that I actually want to do? I was telling you, I was working with a graduate student, and I knew her in high school, and she was, I want to be a physical therapist, physical therapist, physical therapist, physical therapist. And she said it for 4 years, went to college, went for physical therapy, and realized that's not really what I want. I want to help people and I want to work with people, but she actually wants to go into clinical mental health. And so she changed. And why did she change? Well, maybe she got into it and she shadowed some people and she realized there's a physical component on it. She had some volunteer opportunities that led her to working with in clinical mental health. And so all of a sudden, as she learned more about herself and who she was, what she liked, what her values were, what her skill set was, her self-knowledge grew. And because her self-knowledge grew, she realized this isn't for me. But she also, on the other hand, learned more about the world of work. She actually looked at and found out all the different types of jobs she could do helping somebody, and realized it's not just physical therapy, that there was a lot of different ways that she could help somebody. And so when her occupational knowledge changed and grew as well, then that's where in the middle, she started making more informed career decisions. So that intersection of knowing what's out there and what's available and who I am as a person, when you combine those, that's where the magic happens. And you realize that my skill set and what's available to me gives me a really good job that I'm going to be happy in, that I want to pursue, that I want to put time and effort and money, an investment into. But it's important, when you're 16, 17, your bubble of what you know around you and the people that have the career. So, your parents, right? You might know your aunts and uncles, your teachers, right? Maybe your dance instructor or your coach. But again, that's kind of in an education world. And so we don't really have, our bubble as a high school student is relatively small. And so, I was kind of pre-internet. I hate to say that, but that is true. We didn't have our phones, and we couldn't Google stuff, and we couldn't watch TikTokers and all this stuff. TikTok never existed. And that, being an influencer, like, my generation just said, oh, I want to be like an athlete, right? I want to be a professional soccer player or whatever. And now, again, there's more jobs out there than ever existed, 10, 20 years ago. And so, as you guys become more connected, you realize, and hopefully realize, that there's a lot more jobs and stuff out there. My daughter, I'll give you an example. I know she doesn't always like me talking about her, but she loves listening to podcasts. And all of a sudden, we were driving to school this morning, and she goes, Mom, and I'm like, listen to music, and I'm having a good time. I'm pumping myself up for the day. And I'm like, oh, we got to sing the song. And she's like, Mom, I'm listening to this podcast, and it was on aspirin. And she's really in like the medical and pharmaceutical and that type of stuff, and virology and whatever. And she's like, no, I want to listen to this podcast on aspirin. And then she's like, did you know that aspirin is derived from the willow bark? I'm like, nope, didn't know that. And so her occupational knowledge, because she has all this access to MOOCs and podcasts and webinars and stuff like that, is far greater than I ever will. But again, she is still limited on the people around her and so forth. So the career factor is really important to really look at. What do I know about myself? What do I know about the world of work? And then making a decision in between. So I've kind of mentioned it here a little bit, but self-knowledge is, so that's about me, really comes from what I'm interested in, right? So do I like it? And do I see myself painting furniture, or climbing up a pole, or cutting somebody open, or whatever? So am I interested in that? Do I have the ability to do that? So for example, I do not have the ability to cut anybody open. I don't think you want to do that. I'm a doctor, but not that type of doctor. That's not my ability. And I know definitely mathematics is not my ability. And so for me, that occupation is out. So what's my abilities? Well, it's to speak, it's to write, it's to communicate. And so there are certain jobs that you might want to do, but maybe you're not physically able to do the job, or maybe you're too shy and you can't do public speaking or whatever. And you can grow your abilities for sure. And that's usually college and higher ed. But you've got to have some baseline of being able to start. And then lastly, your values, right? So does the job that I have, does it match with my value system? So for example, I'm in education. So my value is maybe as a teacher, it's to have summers off with my kids. And one of my values at working at, say, FSW, is that I'm excited because my daughter goes to the collegiate high school, and a value is having her with me on campus. That's a value. Where some people might value making lots of money, and maybe other people value having very set hours, right? That you can be off from 8:30 to 4:30. Other people value being able to travel and to get up and not have to be in an office. So you can have lots of different values. And again, within the book, we definitely talk about some of those values, and you do a little activity to kind of see what your top values are and what sort of matters to you. And then you develop your occupational knowledge, which in the book, we talk about the 16 different career pathways, or clusters, they call them. And there's some really cool websites like ONET and other things that kind of merge those three things together: your values, abilities, and your interests, and see, where do I kind of fit? Do I fit in information technology, law, public safety and security, business, arts, architecture, hospitality, agriculture? We also have more education, finance, science, STEM stuff, transportation. And so that ONET activities are actually really fun. It's a little quiz, and then you can actually click on all of these clusters, and you're able to drop down and see what's the education needed, what the jobs are available, So there's lots of really cool information. But even at FSW, we're talking a lot about these career pathways, getting you in as a freshman and having you take classes and being a part of a group that helps you actually achieve what your goal is in your path, and really kind of laying that out for you. So career pathways throughout K-12 and higher ed is a really hot topic words, I guess, and making sure that you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and that it matches who you are. So again, that you're not just in a cycle of taking classes or not graduating and not finishing a degree or a certificate. So really important occupational knowledge. So different types of degrees here. So, we are hoping, and we will be really offering up people and experts in all these sort of different types of education degree and programs, because we want you to see there's a lot of different post-secondary options out there. So everything from a certificate, which might be just a few months, to 18 months, and that's a directly workforce specific certificate that gets you right into a job. We also have the Associates of Science or Associates of Arts, which are 2 to 3 year programs. Associates of Science, FSW has a lot of those, and that really are directly employable. So they get you right, you sort of don't take as much like core, like math and science and things like that. You're taking courses that are focused on a specific degree and getting right into it. Associates of Arts are really meant to fold into a bachelor's degree, and that's going to be a little bit more core. So like English, math, science, you have to take 2 English, 2 math, 2 science, 2 humanities, that type of thing. Your bachelor's is your typical 4-year degree. Could be in education, engineering, mathematics, business, those type of things. Your master's degree is obviously it's graduate level. So that's after you graduate with a bachelor's degree, you can go into a master's degree. So for example, I have a master's in counseling, school counseling specifically. And usually you have to obviously have a 4-year degree and then go for your master's. Like think of a MBA, right? Master's in business administration, pretty common. And a lot of your teachers have masters in education, right? Or curriculum or things like that. And then lastly would be your doctorate, which we would call a terminal degree. There's really no degree after doctorate. You could get additional doctorate degrees, but that's basically the most advanced degree in a field. So for example, I have a doctorate in education. So it's the most advanced degree in my field. It could be a doctorate of medicine or like a JD or, in law, that type of stuff. And some jobs require it. Some jobs don't. So just depends on what you want to do. So this is a really good example of sort of how when you sort of upskill and you start with maybe a degree or like a certificate, that's a shorter term activity, to getting more education. So this is an example. Nursing is one of the best examples. Kind of shows you that if you start off with like being a certified nursing assistant, it could be a 4 to 12 week program, depends on what type of program you do. So these are national averages. So you're making a little over $30,000, maybe about 35,000 here. And then you can build up into like an LPN. You can see your salary starts increasing. Then you can do an ADN, a registered nurse. You can go into your RN, BSN programs, and then you could be an APRN, and keeps going, but you start seeing that increases the more education that you get. So can you start with a CNA? Absolutely. And then you can build up as you get going, which is really neat. Okay. So I think, Kelly, I know you're on here. So that really is the first 3 chapters of the book, just an overview. And Kelly, what do you want to add anything? I talked a lot. What do you think?
I think that was awesome. That was perfect. It covered a lot of information, but it's all really good information that our students can use when they're on their pathway from high school to college or technical college into whatever career they decide to go into. Just adding on that if you are in one of the 5 county areas here in Southwest Florida, check your school district website. If you are interested in some of those career and technical education courses, some of those academies, Amanda had talked about dual enrollment and also industry certifications. So in career and technical education courses, you can get some of those industry certifications in high school. So check your school district website to see. I know for Lee County, we have a brochure on our website that lists all of our high schools and all of the different academies. So the very first step, though, like Amanda said, is figuring out yourself, what your interests are, what your skills are, what you're good at, and what your values are. But I think this was an amazing presentation. So thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you, Kelly, and again, appreciate you always being a partner in crime, partner in education. Either way, we could do crime or education.
One or the other. Maybe both.
We have different values, right?
We're teachers, yeah.
We're teachers, you know, it is what it is. And so I know we got just a few more minutes here, and I want to be cognizant of your time. But again, I want to go back to the book, and you can see, again, you know, having that link. So if you just kind of click through, and you should be able to make it bigger. Whoa, see, there we go. Do you see how big that is, Kelly?
Yeah.
Hopefully that's big on yours. So you should be able to zoom it in and make it nice and big. But you can see here is some of that information I was already sharing, right? So now you have sort of the description and the information behind it. This is a really cool sort of chart that kind of shows your academic factor, career factor, money factor. If you're a school counselor watching this and you would like this poster, I have like 1,000 of them sitting over there. I would be happy. I know all the career specialists have it in Lee County, but I would definitely love to give that out to all the colleges high schools if they want. So you can just flip through. Again, these are just what we already went through this evening, and you can see within the book, there are activities. I do suggest you do them. They're there for you to sort of learn about yourself and are directed. If you go to the collegeunmazed.com/downloads, you can actually print out like a printable, not the whole workbook, but it's like the main workbook pages. You'll see activity 1, and there's like a workbook page that you can definitely work out of. And here's all, and we also in the book, I didn't really talk about it, but we do a case study approach. So we actually give you an example of a student starting off, and we try to be diverse, and we try to really think about different types of students coming in. And then we sort of walk you through how that particular student's going through that particular step at that time in their life, right? So like, for example, Emily here is a sophomore, and how is she sort of building that U factor, and we sort of walk you through it. And then one of the things we do here, and I suggest you do, is there's an at-home discussion. So if you are doing this, please do the at-home discussion. Part of creating that college support network around you is talking to them and letting them know that you're doing this and that you are wanting to sort of engage and get more information. And so those questions are there. At the very end of the book, if you flip kind of all the way to the back, there's a timeline that goes through, and you can see here page 132 that has like, here's your key steps through chapter 1, chapter 2. So again, you can see a lot of those high points we've already talked about, but you can see them all right here. So lots of really cool stuff all available to you. And we are up to chapter 3. Like I said, there's more information, but you can see it's real quick, it's colorful, and I think it'll be pretty engaging and will really help you with conversations with your school counselor, with your parents, with your teachers and so forth. So I hope you do take advantage of that. And I think, Miss Kelly, I think we're good for tonight. Thank you so much for hopping on and being with me, and thank you all of you for watching. I hope you join us again. So I should probably reshare that real quick, show you the next, if I just do share correctly. Oops, there we go. It's still difficult after all this time to do Zoom. So let's scroll down here. Our next one is going to be Miss Kelly Thali will be up, and she is going to have several of the state university representatives and admissions on. We're going to release who those are. We already have some in the works, but definitely do sign up, be a part of that, because we're going to hear some really cool information. So that will be September 8th at 6:30, right back here on Zoom. And I think that's it, everybody. I hope everyone has a great night. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part. And I really hope that you enjoy this Are You Ready series. Everybody have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you.